저 할매가 일하고 있는 거 보면 경기 상황 딱 알 수 있지. 딱 알 수 있잖아, 경기 상황. 할매가 저 일하고 있는 거 보면 경기가 이렇다는 거야. 경기 딱 보이지? 뭐 알바라니 닥쳐 씨발. 지금 이 나라는 돈이 주인인 세상이야. 캐피털. 자본이 주인인 세상이야. 자본. 돈이 주인인 세상이라니까. 이해 못하냐? 그냥 뮤트 할까? 뮤트. 아니야. 이거 왜 왔는지 보자. 아까 그 전화. 누구한테 전화 왔습니다. 문 앞에 두고 갑니다. 그거. 경기 딱 보이지? 처음에 그거 하는 거 봤지? 그게 경기가 이렇다는 거야. 일단 나가서 물 좀 가져오고. Need to go for a walk too. I'll be only 11%, bro. Yeah. Let's see through.
거는 하나도 도움이 안 돼요.
Mute.
잠깐만, 레드불 좀 마시고. 레드.
나가자. 너무 답답하다. 나가서 일단 나가. 힘들어. 씨. 일단 나갔다 올게. Sorry, trash, bro. 이 나라 피곤해지네 갑자기. 딱 위에 왔는데 물은 못 받아왔어. 아쉽게도 그 동사무소 닫아서 걷다 왔어 쭉. 몇 바퀴 걷다 왔어. I did film one short. That's it. It's March 2nd. Very tired. Very, very tired. 아! 어, 피곤하다. 아우, 아우. 후후하하 히히하. Arg. 히히히하. 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 Phone does. Phone does. Fine. Almost. 말도 안 되는. Kiyosaki is biased. Yeah. Bernie Sanders. What does Clinton think of socialism? What the fuck?
이제 즐거워질 시간. 리프레시.
지랄아 꺼져 씨발아 꺼져.
Tonight, we renew our resolve.
Fucking faggot fucker.
Never be
Fat motherfucker.
socialist.
Faggot motherfucker. That bitch faggot. Fat bitch, man. Fat pig. Slaughter that fat pig, man. Slaughter that fat pig, man. Slaughter that fat pig. No, Bernie should be in retirement. I already like this quote. America will never be a country where all citizens can get health care without going bankrupt or can take long holidays with their family.
During the debate, Donald Trump attacked Medicare for all as
Socialized medicine.
what I find very amusing is that I didn't hear him complain when he received the best socialized medical care in the world for free at a 100% government-run hospital.
This is an incredible hospital, Walter Reed. You're going to have socialized medicine. The doctors at Walter Reed were incredible.
It's so interesting. What we have is a Donald Trump who loves, enjoys, benefits from socialism for himself.
You know, I have such great access to medical. It's good to be president, I guess.
But for the rest of us, he wants rugged individualism.
True.
President Biden announced this week that he's running for re-election and endorsed. Why is it that not a single leading Democrat is willing to contest that nomination in the primary?
I suspect it has to do with the real fear of the growth of right-wing extremism in this country. The Republican Party over the last number of years, accelerated by Trumpism, has become not a conservative party, but a right-wing extremist party. This is a party that, not all by any means, but you have many of the leaders who actually don't believe in democracy. I think there's a great fear in this country about attacks on democracy. We want to maintain.
So you're saying it's more fear of Donald Trump and MAGA than it is enthusiasm for Joe Biden?
I think
when I think about capitalism, I think about all the small businesses that were started because we have the opportunity and the freedom in our country for people to do that and to make a good living for themselves and their families. And I don't think we should confuse what we have to do every so often in America, which is save capitalism from itself. And I think what Senator Sanders is saying certainly makes sense in the terms of the inequality that we have. But we are not Denmark. I love Denmark. We're the United States of America, and it's our job to rein in the excesses of capitalism so that it doesn't run amok and doesn't cause the kind of inequities that we're seeing in our economic system. But we would be making a great mistake to turn our backs on what built the greatest middle class in the history of the world.
Sanders. I think everybody is in agreement that we are a great entrepreneurial nation. We have got to encourage that. Of course, we have to support small and medium-sized businesses. But you can have all of the growth that you want, and it doesn't mean anything if all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. So what we need to do is support small and medium-sized businesses, the backbone of our economy. But we have to make sure that every family in this country gets a fair shake. We're going to have a lot.
When I think about capitalism, I think about all the small businesses that were started because we have the opportunity and the freedom in our country for people to do that and to make a when I think about capitalism so that it doesn't run amok and doesn't cause the kind of inequities that we're seeing in our economic system, but we would be making a great mistake to
Great entrepreneurial nation. We have got to encourage that. Of course, we have to support small and medium-sized businesses. But you can have all of the growth that you want, and it doesn't mean anything if all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. So what we need to do is support small and medium-sized businesses, the backbone of our economy, but we have to
I think I'm seeing the future.
What is the difference between a socialist and a Democrat? That's the question that was presented to Hillary Clinton on a hardball with Chris Matthews. And I would say in advance that she gave an incredibly unsatisfying answer to a question that's not all that difficult, but let's have you decide.
I want to try to help you for this audience tonight, our audience, locate yourself politically in this country. Now, we have Trump out there and we have Bernie out here. Now, Bernie calls himself a socialist. Nobody uses a derogatory term anymore. He loves to have that label. He's never ran as a Democrat. He runs against Democrats up there in Vermont. You're a Democrat. I'd say you're a pretty typical Democrat in the traditional Democratic Party. And Humphrey, the rest of them, Scoop, not even Scoop, I'd say Mondale, you're somewhere there. What's the difference between a socialist and a Democrat?
Well,
Is that a question you want to answer, or would you rather not?
well, you'd have to ask.
Well, see, I'm asking you. You're a Democrat. He's a socialist. Would you like somebody to call you a socialist? I wouldn't like somebody to call me a
But
socialist.
I'm not one.
Okay,
I
well,
mean,
what's the difference
I'm
between a
not.
socialist and a Democrat?
Well,
Last
I
question.
can tell you what I am. I am a progressive Democrat. I'm a progressive
How's that
Democrat
different than a
who
socialist?
likes to get things done and who believes that we are better off in this country when we're trying to solve problems together, getting people to work together. There will always be strong feelings, and I respect that from, the far right, the far left, libertarians, but whoever it might be. We need to get people working together.
No, that's fine. That's good. Yeah, there's always going to be beliefs from the far right, the far left. Screw y'all. That's an amazing response there.
She is not a progressive Democrat.
She is a progressive on a number of issues.
She's a progressive on some issues, but I would not make the argument. Look, let me get one thing out of the way, okay?
Do it.
Reproductive rights are important. Gay rights are important. All of these little social issues are extremely important. I care about them. We talk about it on the show on a regular basis. It matters to me. However, okay, those are tiny, tiny issues compared to the crony capitalism that Hillary Clinton is a proponent of. Okay,
True.
so she's not a progressive Democrat. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm a progressive when it comes to reproductive rights. I'm a progressive when it comes to gun laws. I'm a progressive when it comes to gay marriage." I wasn't before, but I am now.
Yeah.
Now that it's convenient for me to be progressive. But you're not really truly a progressive when you refuse to regulate the same banks and the same corporations that got us into an economic meltdown back in 2008.
Yeah.
Okay, you are not a progressive. Okay, Bernie Sanders, progressive.
Yeah.
You, not so much.
True.
Another thing that annoys me is Chris Matthews. Chris Matthews needs to understand what it means to frame a question, and he also needs to understand that framing questions in a way to get a result that you're in favor of is not journalistic integrity, okay? Or it goes against journalistic integrity. I don't care what you think, Chris Matthews. You're doing an interview with Hillary Clinton because the public
She's so smart. I love her already, bro. Damn, I respect you.
cares what she has to say. So instead of sharing what you think about Hillary Clinton's political identity before you ask her about her political identity, just ask her about her political identity. I don't care what you think about her political identity. You can opine about that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you probably will.
And you will, and that's fine. At least I know what to expect in that situation. In this case, you're conducting an interview. No one cares about you. It's all about her. Ask the questions and be quiet.
And if you're going to go to all the trouble of bringing in Hillary Clinton and then going into a firehouse so that you can patronize everybody in a way that I've never seen before. I've never seen an interview literally in front of a fire truck. Yeah, we get it. She's a person of the people. But that's just insane that they chose to do that. And so I guess, so we have this today, and we had the Bernie speech yesterday. So both candidates have had an opportunity to differentiate themselves from each other. So yesterday, Bernie Sanders says, "I'm not just going to say cut it out to the bankers. I'm going."
She's an old school Republican when it comes to allowing banks to gamble with that money and warmongering. Everyone Bernie for them.
going to make a number of necessary systemic changes to the way the banks work, the way the Fed works, the way the boards work that control those organizations, to credit card fees and credit card interest rates. I'm going to do all that stuff, and I'm going to make good on the promise of a far more liberal economic system.
And you know what that is? That's a progressive Democrat.
That's the progressive Democrat.
Yes.
And she chose to differentiate herself by saying, he crazy. And I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist at all. That's a terrible answer to the question, man. It's a terrible answer.
So do you guys understand where I'm coming from? Look, the beginning of my commentary is going to be misrepresented, so I want to be absolutely clear about something. All of these social issues, again, are extremely important.
Yeah.
But the one thing that impacts everyone is the crony capitalism that we've fallen victim to in this country.
Sure.
And the only candidate right now, the only candidate who wants to combat that is Bernie Sanders.
True.
And if you ask me, that is what progressive politics is all about.
Or should certainly be about.
Should be about. It's not about picking and choosing some social issues and telling the public that, hey, I'm progressive on these issues, therefore I represent the progressive electorate.
Yeah.
You don't. A real progressive would look out for the people who are working full-time jobs and still don't make enough money to put food on the table for
True.
families.
Yeah.
I love this girl. Yeah. Almost. 인컴 말고 wealth inequality.
In October 2016, WikiLeaks released over 33,000 pages of emails from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair. The Clinton campaign has refused to authenticate individual emails provided by WikiLeaks, instead saying correctly that the Russian government appears to be behind the attack. There are no bombshells in these emails. If you were planning on voting for Hillary Clinton, you're probably still going to do so. And if you weren't planning on voting for Clinton, you probably won't. That said, I think these emails will be really concerning to a lot of liberals who fear and have already feared that Clinton is too close. Bankers on Wall Street.
Our job is to take on Wall Street, not to take their money.
Secretary Clinton, the question was about the transcripts of the speeches to Goldman Sachs.
One of the ironies of this story is that we know about these emails at all because the campaign itself did self-opposition research to find what in her Goldman Sachs speeches could prove damaging should they leak. Among the stuff that's gotten the most attention is Clinton saying that Dodd-Frank, Obama's signature initiative to rein in Wall Street, was, quote, passed for political reasons. And that doesn't mean necessarily that her bank regulation platform is any weaker than Donald Trump's. It's not. It's much tougher. But for the left wing of the party that sees Clinton as already too close to a lot of these interests, this is just going to confirm those suspicions. You can see her aides in the emails internally debating how to make sure that her apparent tone deafness around Wall Street didn't seep out into the public. One example that really drives this home is that right after the campaign launched, Bill Clinton was planning on giving a speech at Morgan Stanley. And Clinton's aides freaked out about this. They said this is something we shouldn't do, and Hillary herself appeared to be okay with it. Now, again, if you were a Clinton fan, you probably don't think that's a big deal. You probably think that Clinton and her husband can march into Wall Street, say what they need to say, collect the money, and not change their viewpoints at all.
I have never, ever been influenced in a view or a vote by anyone who has given me any kind of funding.
But it does speak to, I think, something that we've long suspected, which is that Hillary herself doesn't really see the political ramifications for appearing close to Wall Street, or doesn't care. Another piece of content.
Metaverse, the most evil business in the world.
Facebook's new metaverse is relentlessly horrific. On October 28th, 2021, Facebook released a video revealing that new name, Meta. In the video, Mark Zuckerberg describes Facebook's new augmented reality, a reality where you can be whatever you want to be, where you can be seen how you want to be seen, where you can escape the clutches of your atomized, transient, lonely life. You're in the experience, not just looking at it. And we call this the metaverse. The video was cringy and dystopian. People memed us. It was a joke, and then we all moved on. Little did we know, we were already in the beta version of Metaverse. In 2021, it was calculated that the average American spends 5 to 6 hours a day on their phone and another 4 hours on their computer. That means if you sleep 8 hours a day, you spend almost double the amount of your waking hours in the virtual world than you do in the real world. But what about the other 6 hours of your waking day? The hours we somehow manage to spend in the real world, well, that's time that could be spent in the virtual world. That is wasted time that doesn't make Facebook money. It's a completely untapped market, which is why Facebook decided they would take things to the next level, putting all their money, all their employees, and even changing their name to take our addictions to new heights. This really shouldn't be shrugged off. Facebook's algorithms have already worked exceptionally well. Facebook is one of the main forces behind our virtual addiction in the first place. It's for this reason that the metaverse is beyond sinister, because the metaverse sets a precedent the likes of which we've never seen before. Instead of us being addicted to a drip of anodyne lethargic dross, we will be attaching our own consciousness, our own lives, our own businesses, our own culture, our society into the virtual world. People are getting married inside the metaverse. I just bought a virtual shoe company that makes virtual NFTs and sneakers for the metaverse. We are currently witnessing the commodification and mechanization of human existence. To understand this whole picture, we need to understand the person behind it all. Mark Zuckerberg.
한국에서 그 좁은 땅덩어리에서만 팔려고 막 하시잖아요. 해외에 올리면 팔면 되는 건데 왜 안 팔지?
The son of a dentist and psychiatrist, Mark Zuckerberg was born and raised in an affluent suburb of New York, where he would go on to attend Harvard University. For Mark's entire life, he has never lived outside of the elitist culture he was birthed into. Just like almost all of his co-workers, associates, the reporters covering him, or even the congressman pretending to regulate him. Starting from the beginning, Zuckerberg's business ventures have always been rife with controversy and unethical business practices. Zuckerberg started his first web venture to ignore this reality. It's just easier to be comfortably numb. The closest analogy I can think of to the addictive power of social media is probably heroin. Heroin gives an illusion of knowing and of control. The heroin addict is analogous to the social media consumer, where what is seen feels real. The virtual world allows the user to blot out the real world and enter into a pleasurable passive numbness. You become absorbed by the dopamine, hooking you to look at the next thing and the next thing. And just like any other addiction, people always overestimate their control over their virtual usage. And most importantly, the damage social media addiction has on the lives of its users and society is what, in my view, defines it as a serious addiction. And just a few months ago, Francis Morgan revealed Facebook is ripping apart the social fabric of how society works, and science agrees. A 2017 study in the American Journal of Epidemiology found that the use of Facebook correlated with declining psychological and even physical health. The more time spent on Facebook, the worse the user's mental health. And Facebook's other app, Instagram, is even worse. A 2017 study by the British Royal Society for Public Health discovered that Instagram was the most damaging social media site, causing loneliness, anxiety, and depression. This isn't a secret to Zuckerberg, or even the public at this point. It's an established fact. But if you thought Facebook's global omnipresence wasn't creepy enough, things are about to get a whole lot more dystopian. In 2013, Zuckerberg foresaw that Facebook was going to plateau. Almost all big tech companies reach their expiry date as quickly as they rise. MySpace, Napster, Yahoo. Reality. It's mixed reality. It's blending the digital and real world together. Ultimately, this blend may be so good and so pervasive that the virtual and real become indistinguishable. And the market for that is gigantic. Whoever controls it will basically have control of your entire reality. Our minds have already been jacked into the system.
That your phone is already an extension of you. You're already a cyborg. You don't even, well, most people don't realize they are already a cyborg. That phone is an extension of yourself.
But once we live inside the virtual world, when an entire society, economy, and culture exists in this world, that's when we should be deeply concerned. This is potentially the biggest threat to humanity as we know it. But to understand why, let's first look at the experience machine. Philosopher Robert Nozick coined the idea of the experience machine in the 1960s, and his version of the experience machine has uncanny parallels to the metaverse. The experience machine is a thought experiment, where you can put an electrode in your head and you can simulate neurotransmitters so that you can live life in infinite bliss. Most rational humans would completely reject this. They wouldn't want this, they want a meaningful life. But what if you could put an electrode in your head that gives you endless meaning? Well, I'm starting to worry that that's the situation we find ourselves in now, where the metaverse will provide you meaning through shops, businesses, meeting friends, celebrity worship, instant news, instant pleasure, and shadow meaning in the metaverse. You'll be able to feel as much pleasure as you want, do whatever you want. You can feel like what you're doing is meaningful because that's the illusion needed to keep you stuck in the metaverse algorithm. This is all very real, and as we go into the year 2022, we're already a culture that's being ripped apart by the bliss machine in our pockets, because we're a culture that has lost faith in itself and offers nothing but empty, meaningless nihilism, a neoliberal dystopia that indoctrinates young people to shun authenticity, community, and family in pursuit of vapid consumerism and escapism. Where we're so bumped on social media that for us to feel anything, we have to find the most absurd forms of escapism, where everything is so fake and empty inside that we have to live vicariously through other people's stories just to feel anything, where we no longer have a sense of belonging, with our only destiny to be atomized and alone, embroiled in debt, no savings and no money, living in decaying dystopian megacities that are littered with piles of oozing feces, unable to afford a standard of living that provides us with basic dignity or privacy, a generation of atomized, desperate, lonely losers whose only way of addressing their pain of isolation is to be absorbed by the virtual world, a virtual world that strips us of privacy, freedom and authenticity. So long as our culture continues to offer nothing whatsoever of substance, authenticity, or meaning, nightmarish trends like the metaverse will only continue to proliferate. And the sad fact is the majority of us will jump in without a second thought, because deep down we have nothing else to live for. And when the majority of people go into the metaverse, that leaves only a small segment of the population who remains outside of the metaverse, who are further ostracized from their friends and family. And of course, Zuckerberg knows this, and he wants this. He's the architect of this, because this allows him to become the prophet, the god of an entirely new reality, the creator looking over his population of dumb fucks, an increasingly narrow group of technocrat billionaires who have full control over the lives of the global population. A metaverse of socialism for the rich. This will serve as the catalyst for the greatest transfer of wealth in recorded history, where all our money and assets are artificially owned in a metaverse owned by technocrats who have full control of the switch, who have full control of the algorithms that show you specially created feeds of dopamine hits that continue to shape how you think, how you feel, how you perceive the world. Algorithms that will control your friends, families, and the stimuli around you, which is a very worrying fact considering Silicon Valley is the biggest threat to the West's freedom of speech. For example, back in 2016, billionaire investor, PayPal co-founder, and Facebook board member Peter Thiel was one of the only Silicon Valley executives who donated to Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. Because of his donations, Thiel lost his seat on the board of Facebook on the grounds that supporting Trump was the equivalent of inciting violence. Ellen Powell, the key architect who turned Reddit into the cesspit it is today, explained, quote, "Giving power to someone whose ascension and behavior strikes fear into so many people is unacceptable. Trump's views, Powell wrote, are more than just political speech fueled by hate and encouraging violence. They make each of us feel unsafe." So if Silicon Valley's billionaire clients will publicly shame and cancel their own, what does this mean for the free speech of their consumers? I mean, we've already seen the purging of journalists, commentators, streamers, and even the President of the United States for saying the wrong thing. Just a few years and decades ago, we would never have accepted this excuse that silencing, firing, and cancelling people for their opinions was fine, as long as it wasn't the government doing so. But that era has been all too forgotten. So what does this mean for the metaverse, which will have a monopoly on the bulk of information the globe consumes? And most importantly, this poses the question, what kind of society do we want to live in? The metaverse will grant the control of a new reality to a man who's already tearing up the fabric of society, distrust and hate across the world. And now he's the man who will dictate what you see and feel.
But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human. I am human, still.
Our society has been descending into madness at such an accelerating rate that the metaverse is promoted as our only redemption. A civilization, big tech giants, and while at the same time, The metaverse used to be a laughingstock. It was ridiculous, with headlines about finally adding legs, or the fact that it feels like an abandoned world, or obviously the Wii Sports tier graphics. For almost 2 years since the first announcement, people have laughed at it, thinking that it was a joke, a catastrophic mistake by Mark Zuckerberg. Billions wasted these terrible cartoonish characters. People everywhere online were talking about the end of the metaverse, why the metaverse will never be successful. And ever since, it's always been laughed at, never taken seriously. Until now. In a recent episode of Next Freeman's podcast from Mark Zuckerberg, reality set in as Mark Zuckerberg blew away all expectations.
Following his conversation with Mark Zuckerberg inside the metaverse. Mark and I are hundreds of miles apart from each other in physical space, but it feels like we're in the same room because we're appearing to each other in photorealistic codec avatars in 3D with spatial audio. This technology is incredible, and I think it's the future of how human beings connect to each other in a deeply meaningful way on the internet.
Using some facial scans and some experimental headsets, it became clear to everyone that VR is getting scarily realistic. Whilst this was only a tech demo, the new technology is able to transmit detailed facial expressions data in real time. These are overlaid onto a 3D model, giving seamless photorealism to what used to be a cartoonish joke. And it's just the latest of a whole warehouse of Pandora's boxes that the tech industry has been opening. From ChatGPT preparing for full AI integration with smartphones to Meta's new smart glasses and headsets, we are standing on the precipice of a holographic future. The biggest recent development is obviously the new technology that was shown off in the podcast. It was conducted completely as VR avatars, with a split screen showing each layer of it. First, the reality of Zuckerberg and Friedman wearing VR headsets and headphones. Then, the 3D imaging facial scan, and finally the accurate real-time VR image that we can see. To say it's an upgrade is a massive understatement. Meta went from these goofy looking uncanny valley characters to nearly photorealism. But how did they make the jump so quickly? Why didn't they make a bigger deal out of this? Well, we're still a little way off of seeing this as a consumer product. According to Zuckerberg, the scans took hours using a specialized machine at Meta's offices. And even then, they only really captured the head and the shoulders. The arms, torso, and the rest are a little bit trickier and seemingly out of reach for now. But if technology has proven anything, it's that once you see these sorts of things in tech demos, it won't be long before we see them in reality. Computers the size of a room shrunk down to a small box in barely a decade, while getting more powerful by an order of magnitude. And it won't be long before you can spend a couple of minutes scanning yourself with a smartphone and then use this technology straight afterwards. And the uses for this technology are almost infinite. And they aren't all engineers, but they do seem wrong in some way. Lots of people are discussing the possibility of bringing back the dead as digital avatars. Using AI models of their personality, combined with this technology, would create a realistic visage that could speak as that person. With a decent scan, you could talk to anyone, from your own lost loved ones to the greatest figures from history. It's an unsettling idea.
And let's check this guy. Let's get meeting.
Black box. Black box.
I mean, who hasn't wanted to play a text, adventure game with Snoop Dogg?
They won't really be those people, of course. Just whatever the AI model thinks they are, combined with a 3D model. But having them right in front of you, combined with the way AI can seamlessly mimic human expressions, is frightening. And you can easily imagine how this will impact our own lives. If the technology is there, people will be using it for this purpose, there's no denying it. But how can people be expected to move on with their lives? Having constant access to a representation of someone you lost can be like torture. Out there into our digital world. The more realistic VR becomes, the more people will be sucked away from the real world. We're already seeing the start of this everywhere. When you look around, you see people retreating into their phones mid-conversation, or like how some people seem to live their entire lives online. Most people are spending around 4 to 6 hours a day just on their phone. Meta's gamble is simple. As the world keeps getting worse in this crisis and VR gets more realistic and enticing, more people will get hooked. Every new part of life they can synthesize will be plugged into the metaverse. Along with the Lex Freeman podcast episode, Zod kept describing the end goal, a device that we're going to function as an extension of our very consciousness, with our memory, as they would want a life imbued with purpose, not just constant, undeserved happiness. But let's push the boundaries a little bit, like to craft any life that you dream of. And maybe will feel consequential like it would in the real world, but it's just a mirage designed to ensnare you within the metaverse's intricate web of control. In essence, the metaverse will become the ultimate intoxicant. And this isn't as far-fetched as you might think. Sean Parker
Probably interferes with productivity.
but soon this is going to happen. Run-ups and overpriced by the time we get in this market. Without
With meta AI in them.
these glasses will bring it into the forefront of being redundant. Similarly, as the AI gets more advanced, we'll be able to add more and more thinking for you, but our ability to see and understand the world around us shouldn't be something.
Meta Mark looks more human than real Mark. Oh.
Get machine. I think equally as cynical when you consider the book performs on par with or slightly below human.
Mark looks more real than real.
You don't get compensated based on how hard you work. You get compensated based on the demand for your particular set of skills. There's probably less people that can work in the position that Bezos does than there are people that can work in any other more entry-level position at Amazon.
Wow.
Wait, do you disagree with that? Do you think just as many people could handle being the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company as could handle being somebody that works in a grocery store or a fast food restaurant?
We have a system that rewards one person with $200 billion and another one with $30,000. That's a remarkable decision. No fairness here, no equality. It's a remarkable self-serving.
That's how many times? 10 times.
System where the folks at the top give themselves as much as they can get away with.
Wait, what was the original question?
The question how we understand. You want to get through.
$20,000 millionaires. Ben Shapiro.
Why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? Is this so hard for you? Why can't you just be honest?
Mr. Shapiro,
it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it. I just asked you a question.
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
frankly, I don't care. I don't frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have
Then why the hell are you
but it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims
Well, it'd be nice if you
society.
would quote it from time to time.
Your book is I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again. If you would let me just finish the question. Your book
Frankly, I don't
claims
think
that
it's- you know what?
society
Honestly-
is turning its
honestly,
back
sir,
on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, this is
What are
considering
those values?
considering
What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse now, Mr. Shapiro. We'll see.
No one. Shapiro called the worst conservative journalist in Britain leftist.
Why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? This is so arbitrary. Why can't you just be honest? Seriously, it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you would have said it. I just asked you a question.
And I asked you a question, you failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me. Frankly, I don't care. I don't frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this.
It's not a fake interview. He just left. Oh. That seemed pretty emotional. Why is your side? It just seems to give argument based on emotion.
But that's not the issue. You haven't
Then why the hell are you interviewing
it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims
Well,
that
it'd be nice if you
society.
would quote it from time to time.
Your book is, well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again if you would let me just finish the question. Your book
Frankly, I don't
claims
think
that
so. You know what?
society
Honestly-
is turning
honestly,
its
sir-
back on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, this is
What are
considering
those values?
considering
What are the values that's turning its back?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time. sir.
All right.
Thank you so
Well, thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse, now, Mr. Shapiro. But that's not the issue. You have it.
Then why the hell are we with it,
It's an interesting book.
The book. If you want to read, if you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
Frankly,
try and
I don't
answer
care.
the
I don't frankly
questions?
give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you. To speak myself for this, but that's not the issue. You have
Then why the hell are we with it?
it's an interesting book.
Never heard of you. Never heard of you. Shapiro.
It's clearly
Who is this Ben Shapiro dude? Never heard of you. I've never heard of you.
I first found you on Twitter a few female Ben Shapiro, and I saw the resemblance. I thought, okay, you guys were related somehow.
We're not related, although you gave me the great idea that we should do a DNA test just to see if there's any.
There might be something.
Yeah, I mean, because I didn't see it. I think it's the eyebrows, but I really don't know. We should actually do a side by side. A lot of people have said, "Oh, you know, you're right, Lynn. You probably like grew up watching Ben. Like that's why you talk." I'm like, literally no. We just speak very, very quickly and talk with our hands a lot apparently. So yeah, I am a Daily Wire now. I host the
Neil deGrasse just Ben Shapiro.
희귀성 신장 질환을 갖고 태어나 20살 시한부 선고를
I can write it. I think you're fucked.
Shapiro had a conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson about science because, you know, conservatives care so deeply about science.
See now.
The argument is made that trans women
Yeah.
are women, for example. Not true. Like, why is it bad or wrong?
I have another way to approach this.
For example.
And he's trying to push. But what I appreciate, and we know that Shapiro has not been so kind to the transgender community, so you can imagine what kind of narrative he's trying to push. But what I appreciate, and Shapiro had a conversation with.
He's conversing with a veteran, bro. Bro, he's not gonna win, bro. There's so much more experience than Ben, bro. deGrasse Tyson, bro. He's not gonna win.
It's Neil deGrasse Tyson about science because, you know, conservatives care so deeply about science. This time, the topic was specifically about transgender rights. He refers to it as transgenderism. And I'm guessing he was hoping that Neil deGrasse Tyson would go along with whatever narrative he was trying to push. And we know that Shapiro has not been so kind to the transgender community, so you can imagine what kind of narrative he's trying to push. But what I appreciated was how Neil deGrasse Tyson responded to Shapiro's statement in this video. Take a look.
The argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are...
잠깐만. 목말라. 목말라.
Identical to women. Now, people say trans women are not biological women. Obviously, that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that. Although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is for example, and what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, people want to say trans women are not biological women.
Shapiro's statement. Shapiro's statement in this video. Take a look.
The argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, people want to say trans women are not biological women. Obviously, that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that. Although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong?
I have another way to approach this. I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study. If you want to say it's only sociological, then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interesting fact about society that's worth learning about. To fight someone and say it's not biological, it's just your this, it's real and it's there.
True.
We've got some more clips from this interview, but Francesca, I want to go to you first. How did Neil deGrasse Tyson handle that? Were you in favor of it? Could he have been a little stronger? Look, for me personally, I love the first reaction to Ben Shapiro's statement because it was like, where are you trying to go with this? Like, what is your intention here? Because that's really key in understanding the motivation behind the framing and the line of questioning in this interview.
Yeah. I love when he just like folds his hand and it's like his mind is just going to outer space, like find the peace, Neil. Like you're hearing a lot of shrill nonsense, and he just like folds his hands and goes there, and then comes back with "You're right," an incredibly, very smart retort, which is why? Why are you obsessed with this? And that's the same thing with anti-trans extremists all the time is, what's your point? Let's say you're correct, right? So what? Right? And the answer is, well, I don't know. I just, I want to keep people from living their truth. I want to keep people from accessing the same services. I want to keep people from healthcare. I want to make sure that there's more hate crimes against them. I want to send them to, camps so they can re-educate themselves about what gender they really are and what is the next level here? Because that's what it feels like. And if you're so obsessed with it, do you have something to tell us? Do you also have feelings like you're in the wrong body? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to the mentality against same-sex marriage, right? I think that there's an element to this where I don't think elements of the right wing take the transgender community seriously in that they seem to think that it's some sort of lifestyle choice, right? And it's so that's why they're so focused on the biological arguments, right? Well, biologically, it's a woman, it's a man, not a woman. Biologically, this, biologically, they're trying to like hone in on, in their minds, this perverse way of living and a perverse lifestyle choice that people are making, when in reality that's obviously not the case. Who the hell makes the decision that basically makes them vulnerable to the worst forms of hatred, brutality, violence, discrimination? And also, yeah, why do you care? Like, if your whole ideology, and look, I think Ben Shapiro is actually different from other right-wing media figures in that I don't think that for him, this is just a culture war to deflect from economic issues. Ben Shapiro was writing anti-pornography books way before he was like known figure. right? Like, these are issues that he deeply cares about. But the question
Dude is the most backed up. I mean, I swear, if there's anyone who's more backed up than Ben Shapiro, I'd like to see him. I'm sorry.
Well,
like, his whole thing is like...
I don't know. I mean, he's got a wife.
Ben Shapiro is the queen of all Karen.
He's got kids. Like, I've heard that the Proud Boys don't allow themselves to masturbate. Like, I would argue maybe they're a little more backed up. But no, Ben Shapiro does seem to have some issues. Like, the fact that he lost it over a Cardi B song and, like, the idea of women getting aroused, like, really offended him. Like, there's something up. And I would just argue that if the majority of your ideological beliefs revolve around denying others their rights because you disagree with their lifestyle choices, which have no bearing on your life, you gotta really rethink what your priorities are. You really do. There's something wrong with you if your political identity is about snatching rights away or denying rights to people who just have lives that are different from yours or identities that are different from yours. That's what Ben Shapiro is. I mean, I keep track of his podcast. Like, I'm curious, like, what is he talking about today? And the majority of his content is, I don't like the way you're living. I don't like what you're rapping.
It literally looks like an adult talking to a little kid.
He's like the woman from our HOA who's like constantly like snooping in on us and trying to figure out whether or not we're doing anything right or wrong. Like, just get out of our lives. Get out of our lives.
And it's also, it is exactly, Ben Shapiro is someone who trots out the Holocaust all the time. He talks about, which is fine, right? But he weaponizes it against people like Ilhan Omar and calls them anti-Semitic whenever they criticize Israel, right? But, like, looking at his ideology, whose ideology is more in line with Nazism, right? Like, people who say that everyone should live their truth and live the identity that they feel like they want to live and love who they want to love, or the person who's like, nuh-uh, there's a right way and a wrong way, there's a pure gender and a not pure gender. That sounds like some Nazi crap, all right? So, like, again, and the last thing I'll say is, I said this before in the show, and if you are obsessed with men, so-called men, going into so-called women's bathrooms or dressing up as women or pretending to be a cis gross logic.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I can't help myself.
I think he got famous debating college kids.
Why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? This is so hard. Why can't you just be honest? Seriously, it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it. So let's move on.
Why don't you just say that you're on the left? This is so hard. Why can't you just be honest?
Mr.
Seriously,
Shapiro,
it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it. So let's move on.
Are you an objective journalist or are you an opinion journalist?
I'm the journalist that asks questions.
Yes.
Mr.
So
Shapiro,
are
I know
you
that
a member of
broadcasting in America is now so polarized that in one program you only have the left and another one you just have the right. My job is to question those who have strong views and put an alternative to them. If you were an anti-abortion person, I would be putting pro-abortion questions to you.
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
What do you think? It's not what I want. When I search up Ben Shapiro destroyed by BBC. Destroyed by. When I search up Ben Shapiro destroyed by BBC. Destroyed by BBC. 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 Oh, very cute, yeah. There's more. Wait, what's Piers Morgan's political view? He's a populist. Populism.
about yourself, please?
I'm good, mate. And you are the most famous young man in Australia after cracking the joke that reduced the Today Show host to quivering wrecks of laughter. So for the benefit of our viewers, what was the joke?
A vegan and a vegetarian are jumping off a cliff to see who will hit the bottom first. Who wins?
I don't know. Who wins?
Society.
It is a very, very funny joke. I mean, obviously, vegans and vegetarians won't laugh, but they never laugh at anything because they never eat enough meat, so they're always angry. Is it giving you the temptation now to become a comedian when you get older?
Yeah.
Any other jokes up your sleeve?
Back in your day, you had Wonder Woman. In my day, we wonder if it is a woman.
You say, the bald, big bald head. Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, what the fuck? Most degenerate influencers of all time.
Doesn't matter, shouldn't be that easy to break. Wow, that doesn't look that easy to break, does it? Look, I love durability tests too, but when you specifically go out of your way to attempt to destroy the phone. Isn't that kind of the
이 빈박스 없나요? 감사합니다.
The iPhone 15 is finally here, and for just $800, you can get your hands on it.
No, I don't know if I like it that much.
US model with basically no new features except the one Apple was legally. The iPhone 15 is finally here, and for just $800, you can get your hands on the US model.
13이랑 별로 차이가 없는데. 12랑.
With basically no new features except the one Apple was legally for. Cincy. That's right, besides the USB-C ports, the iPhone 15 seems to be yet another upgrade that barely changes anything. As soon as it was announced, people everywhere were once again underwhelmed, bored, and frustrated. To understand what I mean here, I need to provide some context. You see, the iPhone SE audio has the largest market share across the world. In the USA, smartphones are released almost every year, but in the early days, every new iPhone used to be something special.
And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
A big upgrade from the previous ones, which used to be very innovative and exciting, but as time progressed,
True. 그때는 아이폰 막 나올 때 재밌었긴 했지. 그래, 맞아. 아이폰 재밌긴 했어. 4S 때 처음 가졌었던 것 같아. 스웨이트 있을 때.